welcome back to another episode of the Healthcare Inspired Podcast. My name is Jennifer McNamara, and I am your host. I would like to invite to the stage my co-host once again, Miss Maya Turner. Welcome to the show, Maya.
Hello, everybody.
Oh my goodness, we're back.
Yes, it's been so long. I feel like I'm going through some withdrawals.
I feel the same, lady, and I know that it's just one of those things where it's like we tried, we had life happen and different
Yes.
things,
Mhm.
and so we're consultants. We're always on the go. We're always working, doing something, right? So
Oh, we
it's just one
always
of
got
those
something
things.
going. Always the life of a
Yep.
consultant. That's another type, another show. The life of a consultant. I tell you, it's.
Oh my goodness, girl. I'm telling you what, it's just like, oh, I gotta figure my life out sometimes and see what I can do to improve and add to it. But I've been busy, you've been busy. So let's of course let our audience in on this fabulous topic today. And this was a special request from a colleague out in the world. And I promised her I would get this on the show. And so here it is today, our topic of micromanagement versus
Mhm.
delegation. We got to
Yes.
turn that around. Like, we have to
Yes.
figure this out.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And to me, micromanagement is really an element about trust. If
Mhm.
there is not enough trust, then you can't possibly allow the person to work because you're constantly thinking about the next and not trusting them to do the next without them intervening. Um, I mean, and I've seen many people walk away because they are not trusted due to micromanagement. Um, and it's not that they aren't valued, they just don't trust them because they need them to do the work because they don't want to do it themselves. That's why they keep asking you. So I'm just saying, I've been there. I think I mean I've never been a person to micromanage anybody. I'm always okay, these are what you need to do. Okay, and then I'm here if you need help. But when you micromanage, to me, that's just an issue of trust. And versus when you delegate something, that is all about trust because you're asking them to do something that you know that they're able to do and they follow through. Now, if there's not, again, enough trust once that delegation is given, then it becomes micromanagement.
Very, very true. And you are 100% spot on. Trust is the name of the game. And I think we've all had those experiences. And, we want to be trusted to do our jobs. We want to trust our teams. But there are things that can help us to do that maybe we're not using. So we'll talk about some of those things today. I'm going to share some of my own experiences. And I encourage, of course, Miss Maya to share some of her experiences. But we understand that it does affect the dynamics of a team. It affects the overall production, especially in the coding world when you have to, you have so many things we have to do in the coding world. We have to look at documentation. We have to understand anatomy. We have to know payer rules. And I'm going to be honest, I sometimes run across managers who don't have a coding background. I know they're out there because they didn't go to school for coding. They are in management. They understand budgets. They understand operations and managing a team, but they don't understand the day-to-day work that the staff has to undertake. And so I think that's where we need to really help them to understand how to do their jobs better. And I think we lost her, but we'll just keep on moving through. So when we think about understanding the issue, I think the thing that we need to understand is that it's that excessive control, right? It's the excessive control that interferes with the work that our staff has, right? And so this can lead to all kinds of outcomes. I feel like, sometimes you look around the room and you feel like everyone has this look on their face, like I'm just not enjoying my job. You maybe can sense that in your environment that you're in. But why is that? Is it the fact that they feel like they're not trusted? Do they have the resources that they need to do their job? And so I think that's part of the issue. I think part of the issue is um, they have this feeling of, I don't have what I need to do my job. And so when I think about the overshadowing that can happen, I also think about our consultants. So for a minute, I want to talk about consultants. I'm a consultant, Maya's a consultant. And of course, I have a lot of friends out there who are consultants, and I hear stories, I hear all kinds of stuff. But when we think about what happens when you call an expert in, right? Like myself or Maya to do something, and you're in a room and you're like, this is what we need from you. And then you're starting to tell them what to do. And then there's some backpedaling and saying, hey, we don't do it that way. Then why am I here? Then why are you asking me
Exactly.
to come in?
Right. Again, I think it's about trust, right? And I think the rationale behind seeking an expert and the need for trust to make the change, right? You have to trust somebody to help transition, become the transitional leader, if you will, to help assist with the change. So you ask someone, but if you're not willing to change, then it's either A, micromanagement, or B, just unwillingness to grow. I mean, because medicine and the business of being in business, right, is all about change and adapting. But if you fail to do that, then you're going to miss customers, you're going to miss revenue, and you're going to miss employees because you're not cognizant of those three things that constantly have to be on your mind, that the three-dimensional thinking process to help manage your business.
100%. And it's not all the time the management role. It could be the physician. And
Yeah.
so we think about the physician-owned practices, they have a lot to say about what happens in their clinic and what things they purchase, who they bring in to touch their patient data. And I understand that. But when
Yeah.
I talk to a physician and I say, first, I want their specialty has a lot to do with it and their dynamics. And then the services they offer. Are they going to be doing
Right.
surgery? Are they going to be primary care, mostly focused on evaluation management services? Do they understand the global package? Do they understand the payer mix that they have and what the rules are? Are they going to accept this insurance? Are they going to opt out? What is their situation? And then when I have conversations like I had in recent, months where they don't want to do it that way. They just want to throw it against the wall and see what sticks. They want to just put all the codes out there and see what happens. And I advise on the level of that is horse fraudulent based on what we know and what has been documented as fraudulent activity. And it's one thing to say, I don't accept Medicare, but it's another thing to say, hey, I'm just going to bill commercial. But guess what? You're still under regulations from those insurance companies as well. You have your
Yeah.
state
State
regulations
regulation.
you have to follow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah, it's
yeah.
interesting, No, I was going to say it's interesting because they think just because you're not billing Medicare or Medicaid that you're out of the woods, and you're really not because there's state obligations. There's a state regulation of insurance that has to be put into play regardless, especially if you're dealing with telehealth, right? Telehealth has its own regulation. So if you feel that just because you're not billing Medicare and Medicaid that you're out of the woods. That's not true. It's definitely not true. You still have to be licensed. You still have to be credentialed in order to practice in those different states, whether it's your home state or not. So,
Yeah.
the rules don't go away when you decide just to bill commercial or private payers. It just doesn't.
No, the rules are there regardless. We're governed by rules in everything in our lives. I mean, just gravity. It's just like there's so many things in the world that are governed by rules and laws, right? It's like you can't get away from your
Gravity.
responsibility, right? Right, gravity's there, guys. We'll fall. It's true. And so I just, it's common sense, but sometimes you hope common sense is there, but then sometimes it's not, and you have to bring
Yeah.
everybody back to reality.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what the
Yeah.
world we live in, especially in
Yeah.
healthcare. Things are
Absolutely.
constantly changing, and so you can't expect to say, "Hey, I've always done it this way." Well, maybe you did 10 years ago, but this is 2024, guys. uh it's so different. The landscape's different. That's why I am trying to do a lot more education on career advancement, what is happening in the industry. So for all of you out there interested in advancing your career, I am doing a special webinar next month in August, excuse me, it's in August. I'm giving you a couple months to figure this out, get yourself together and join me. It's going to be, of course, an investment in your career. There will be a fee attached to the webinar, but I hope that you'll attend because it's really important for you to understand what the roadblocks are in your career now that are preventing you from moving forward. And if you don't have the desire to advance in your career, this webinar is not for you. I do not want anyone registering that has no interest in advancing their career and being a professional. And I'm talking about careers. I'm not talking about jobs. I'm not talking about people that
There's
just
a
want to clock
difference.
in and clock out and be done. They have a true
Right.
passion for the industry and they want to grow. They want to be successful. So
Branding.
those are the people I want coming to my webinar in August. So check our page out on LinkedIn. I posted it there. And also you'll see on the website very, very soon. So stay tuned for that. But let's come back to our discussion here on our segment. Our next segment on this discussion is identifying the signs of micromanagement. So how do we identify micromanagement? Well, first of all, I'm going to give you a key indicator that we think about is the ability to update your team. So if you're not getting frequent updates from your manager, they might be keeping things to themselves and they may not be sharing important things. And then later,
Right.
6 months down the road, you realize there was a memo you never got because somebody else asked you if you got it. And you're like, no, I didn't get that. I looked at my emails. It's not there.
Yeah.
And then another key indicator, every time you say something, they're like, but what about this? Did you consider this? They're always second guessing you. And
Yeah.
are you sure?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just this feeling of like you said, are you trusting me? And then involving themselves in minute details unnecessarily. I love that one because it's like, do you really have to be involved in this? Like, it's such a small thing. And like, do you really need to be in control of this process? Like, I got this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the signs, guys.
Yeah. I mean, and to me, if you're not meeting with your team at least once a week or after a major meeting to talk about what's happening or what the next is, or, there's something that's come down the pike that you're in charge of, and you're not meeting your team as these changes occur, then yeah, that is a sign of micromanagement and also is a sign of, and I hate to say this, lack of leadership ability. Because if you're managing or if you're the lead, you're part of a team, but as also a part of a team, they have to be well informed. If your team is not well informed, that's an issue about how things get carried through. And then if you're holding information, then why are you holding that information? Is that information to make yourself look good? Because you're not the delegated manager, but you are in charge. So you want to make someone else look bad. I think part of that is keeping your team well informed and meeting them when changes occur. Um, and when I worked for my former employer, we always had a weekly check-in. And when things changed and there was something important that they needed to know that was going to affect their jobs, we talked about it and we had a plan. So, having a plan when there is change and informing them of those changes are extremely important.
Absolutely. Now, I will say, about a week ago, I posted this fabulous audiobook that I found on Audible called Mean Girls at Work. And
Yeah, I saw that.
I've not had any experiences necessarily with micromanagement from a male. I'm just saying, not necessarily. Maybe like a hint of it. But it's
Yeah.
kind of natural for males to take charge. But at the end of the day, it's like women are in this position where they feel like they have to prove themselves, and it's understandable. I totally get it. You're in an industry
Yeah.
where it's male dominated, and you feel like in order to do your job well, you have to put yourself on the same level as a man. And maybe you think that means that you have to be mean to everyone, and that's not the case. Like, I mean, most men are not mean to their staff. I mean, they just are assertive, and there's a difference.
Yeah. And I remember I was and they have different ways to approach situations. Um, they're naturally not understanding of a woman's needs because they're a man. But when they try to understand a woman's mean, it can be insulting because they're not trying to understand the woman's needs. So, it you really have to be careful about the type of conversations you have with a male lead, because there are certain things that they're just not going to get. It's just not going to be on the same, and um, working as having a lead or a manager that's a male and a manager that's a female, females are very granular in details. Males are just very general. I've never had a male micromanager, but I have had a male manager. So I think there's a big difference between male and female management, and that's a whole different topic altogether. But
Yeah,
true.
we'll go there today. That's a whole other episode, girl. So I think about, just like you mentioned earlier, the meeting thing, like meeting with your team
Right.
afterwards. But then I have this whole other, like, I don't know, trauma of my life when I've had to go through a management position. And I was a director of a department once, and it's just like, oh my goodness, another meeting, another meeting. And then I realized that this is exactly what I thought about my manager when I was, of course, in production. I was like, why are they always in a meeting? And then I was like, I became a manager, a director, and I'm always in a meeting. And then I'm like, why are we even having this meeting? Like, I could be getting so much done right now. So, like, does this even need to be taking place? Like, do I even need to be in this meeting? And then it's having those meetings. Do they add value? Right? Are they actually relevant to what we need to get done today? And do we have to insist during that meeting approval on every change that has to take place? Um, is there something that we have to do today, like right now? Is it going to stop production if we don't meet right now? Or is there flexibility? Are there things that we can do um, that we can be flexible on, where we don't have to meet today? We can just communicate by email, send me your proposal, send me your reports. We'll look at it, and then maybe we'll discuss it next week. And is it convenient for everyone? So those are things I think about, do you have to have this right now? So those are things that I focus on when it comes to the meeting thing. And then I think about our team dynamics. Uh, I think about just the way our teams interact is different than it was 20 plus years ago, right? So, or even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, before the pandemic. And so we're very virtual these days. We're having meetings virtually. We're having meetings in person, sometimes hybrid. We have a lot of technology we're using to be more efficient. And when we're micromanaging our teams, it can affect the morale and the productivity, like I mentioned. So if they have a huge roadblock to their, maybe their billing queues or their coding queues, and they're trying to get this stuff done, it can really affect their productivity when they can't get to those tasks. And guess what? It also affects your ability to see the revenue come in when you're holding your team back from getting things done. So going back to this thought of your team dynamics, when we consider the fact that they have things to get done and like it is affecting the revenue, if we don't let them do their job, think about how that affects
Right.
your boss. If you're a manager, what are they going to ask? Why isn't this getting done?
Yeah, I
So,
apologize. My
yeah,
internet, I'm using oh, can you hear me?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
I
I
can
was
hear
just
you.
gonna say, my phone. I'm talking to you from my phone. Unfortunately, I'm really having bad connectivity. I'm getting really bad vibes from my desktop. It's old and I need new hardware, and it hasn't come here yet. But in any case, getting back to the revenue cycle. That revenue cycle is extremely important, and when you're dealing with the revenue cycle and you're a manager and things happen, there has to be a process. There has to be a method of communication, and there's a huge difference between inputting a process and then trusting the process. And I think, when you're dealing with, revenue cycle and people have the answer to why this is this and this, you have to refer back to what is the process? Has that process been implemented? Did something fail to get happen and it resulted in 120 days out and it's $500,000, nobody's following care or following through on what needs to be done. So, you know, enforcing, trusting, and delegation is going to all come into play when you're Very important.
Very, very good. Yes. And then I think about, I don't want to say they're non-trained, but there are some managers that out there that don't have a coding background. Now, I think it's great when they do, but maybe they're not in it every day, so they forget things. But even, and then if they're not, have no training at all, they have to completely rely on their teams to give them feedback. And they should. They should rely on their teams to give them the feedback they need, what they need to take to maybe higher up the chain to say, hey, we need more resources. We can't get the accurate information that we need because we don't have the resources. And they don't have to control every aspect of it, but they need to know when there's an issue that they need to solve. And they can look at the data. They can see that the money's coming in, or they can see when there's notes in the system where there may be an issue. Then they can come to that employee and say, hey, I noticed a couple of these things. Is there anything you need from me? So it's not like they're trying to micromanage. They're just trying to let the team know they're there for them. And they've seen some of this in the reporting, and they feel like it might be a good time just to kind of go over it with them if there's anything they need. And that's where they approach it from. They don't approach it from an aspect like, I saw you did that, you shouldn't have done that. But what do you need from me? Because I'm here to help.
Right. And I think it also goes back to how they're trained, right? I also think, when you're training and there's education in play, whenever there's someone that's a promotion, you should be inclined to take some sort of management class if you haven't done so already. If you're not a part of that training process, then, there has to be some sort of training nucleus, if you will, to how things are implemented, when you're involved. So, I know when you're a larger organization, you have classes that you take. When you're a smaller organization and you take on the position as a leader, a position as a manager, then you should be inclined, if your company doesn't have the resources, to find some training, learn how to communication with your team, and make sure that, it's understood the things that you have to say and the things that you have to implement as a team to make sure that the performance is consistent and not falling because of your watch or because of things that you may not have noticed or things that weren't noticed before. So
100%. So let's talk about turning the tide, so to speak, and how we can effectively move into this world of communicating better without feeling like we're being micromanaged. Now, I'm going to jump back to our consultants for a minute, because I really encourage you as a consultant, you're probably already doing this, but making sure you have open discussions. And that means that's a two-way street, that each party is openly listening and having active participation in the conversation. What are the concerns? And 100%, what are the boundaries? Boundaries, guys. We all have boundaries, right? Things that we're allowed to say to another person and things that are just not okay to say to another person.
yeah.
It's just not okay.
Yeah.
It's common sense, and it's just, human.
Yeah. I think as a consultant, there has to be a method of communication. Communication is when people are listening, it's understood, and they walk away understanding each other's position. But a lot of times as a consultant, I was just talking about this earlier, they might not, the client or the physician or the practice may not know what they want. So you have to be, you almost have to anticipate needs. You have to be intuitive as a consultant. And even as a manager, I would even say, even as a manager, you have to be intuitive when it comes to certain things, because there's always going to be that gray area that needs to be addressed. There's always going to be that gray area. And then you have to use this superpower. I can't think of anything else. This superpower for to be able to engage whenever there's an issue that needs to be addressed. So I think that's important.
Exactly. Absolutely. I think, you're going to have check-ins. You're going to have times you have to see how you're paying this person. You want to see their work, what they've done. And so I work with a tech company right now, and I'm doing consulting for them. And so they give me a spreadsheet. They tell me what they want, because I have to give them the guidelines. Then their developers translate that into developed language, whatever. And that whole process has to happen. But they're not always like worried about me, because they're like, we have a meeting next week. Let's see what you got. And so I send them the spreadsheet ahead of time. And so this is where I'm at right now. And usually I have to ask for approval to work on the next set of hours because we're on a budget with this, right? With this company. Like they say, this is how many hours we can approve this week. And so when I reach that, I say, hey, I'm done. What do you think? And so like that is how we function. And one of the main things that I want to get across, whether you're a manager of an employee or you're actually working with a consultant, balancing oversight with autonomy, right? So the focus should be on the outcome, not the process. Support without overstepping. Did we get that?
Yes. Yes. That's rich.
Feels good,
That's
right?
rich.
I love
like
it.
that.
And I just is like, we hear the word autonomy all the time, but it's like there are certain things that you need to focus on, but the focus should really be what happened after you implemented this process, not the process itself.
Right.
And if that process isn't working,
Right.
then we regroup it. But the focus should be on what was the outcome.
Yes. Yes.
So
I love that. That
it's
is
results.
golden.
That's for
Yes. Golden nuggets from Jennifer McNamara. I promise you that's rich.
I
right
love
there.
it. It's just like when I go back to the previous experiences I've had, it's all come back to, we try to define autonomy. It's like being able to make our own decisions, being able to auto, right? What we can do, right? So we take ownership of what we do, and that it shouldn't be about how we got there. It's like I remember this movie once, and it was like this kid got in trouble from his teacher because he didn't show his work, and but he did it in his head, and it's like so he got in trouble for being smarter than the teacher.
Yeah.
I just loved it. I was the most perfect example. Well,
it was The Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah, you and me, girl, we know our movies. Telling you what, but I thought it was hilarious because Dennis Quaid's like, how could he get in trouble for being smarter than he is? And
he
it's
failed
so
me,
funny.
remember?
It's like your team. Yeah, I know he failed me, remember? But it's crazy because in my environment of working, I have come across so many people that are smarter than me, and it's like, how do they do it? How do they put that together so quickly in their head? I can't do it. And there's other people that come to me and say, how do you do it so quick? And everyone's different. So appreciate them for their abilities without feeling like they're overshadowing you.
I think also, and I don't want to say this, people take offense.
Yeah, you do.
But sometimes micromanagement is, sorry. I'm sorry what I'm about to say. But sometimes micromanagement is also about insecurity. I'm just saying, when you're insecure
100.
about something, you tend to either portray that in the work or micromanage who you feel insecure about. And then there's the lack of trust, and then there's that result of that person either leaving or feeling some sort of animosity towards the person who is creating this toxic environment where they can't be productive because they're constantly micromanaging. So, you know, I almost feel that if the person has a micromanaging trait, that they should not be in that position because they have to learn how to be secure about that position. And or you have to learn to trust people to have talents that you don't have, but cohesively work together to produce something that no other team can produce. Some managers or some leaders are not very well organized. Okay. So you delegate that. Okay, well, we're going to have a meeting, but I want you to take notes. Some people are not very well versed with understanding processes. Okay, well, this person, is going to write down what the process is, and we're going to have a point of reference, but I'm going to ask you to do that. And then the manager might be the think tank. So if they're the think tank, then they're working together with this team. They know their role. You're working cohesively, and it becomes a winning combination because there is no insecurity. There is a lot of trust. There is delegation, and people feel valued. So, you know,
Mhm.
And I hate to say it, but I mean, it's just all, to me, that's what it boils down to.
Exactly. And the next few episodes that we're going to have on this show about leadership really tie back to the announcement I made a few weeks ago about my book coming out in the fall.
Yes.
So it will be on pre-sale in September. It'll be on pre-sale in September. But we want to kind of give you a preview of what you're going to learn in that book, just kind of get you excited about it. And so we will have episodes on cultural competence, more compliance talks for sure. We'll talk about what you do when in a situation where it's kind of like a disaster, right? Like when there is a disaster in the community, how do you come together? And how does leadership get involved in helping the teams heal and helping them get through the challenges that happen because we just had a disaster here locally. And so it was brought to my attention about how healthcare teams help the community heal, but also help their team members feel like they're there for them, because a lot of them got affected. So I encourage you to stay with us over the next few episodes. We're going to have some more great things coming at you. We're going to talk about, of course, next week, we'll have a special guest on the show talking about just the transition in leadership, thinking about how we go from one position to another and how we can transition, and then how we can help our team when they have a new manager. How do they feel when they have a takeover, so to speak, and they were used to someone else, and now someone's come in and kind of run the show. How do we get through that? So that's coming up, guys. And I want to thank my lovely co-host, Maya. Thank you for joining today. We encourage you to stay tuned and tell us more about your experiences. Please share those with us on YouTube. Share it with us, of course, on all of our socials. Go listen to our podcast, Healthcare Inspired, Season 3 on The Connected Leader, and share with us on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, what your experiences have been. Please give us a review, like, subscribe, get the word out that you love listening to this podcast, because I know you do. And we want to make sure we give you the topics that you're needing to, hear about, right? Yeah, we know they love us, Maya. They do. So reach out to us, and we're available, right, Maya? We're not unapproachable. You can talk to us like you can talk to anybody. We're
absolutely. Yes, exactly.
We're real. We're real people. And so I want to thank everyone for joining. People. It's just been a great experience to be on the show. This is like third, fourth time podcasting over the years. I started in 2020, and now here we are in 2024. I love what I do. I love sharing it. I love offering this platform to people. So please use and abuse us. We love to be here for you, and check us out. Absolutely.
I have two last.
Yes, right. But we have 2 bonus episodes coming at you next week as well, for our vendor spotlights that we do for vendors that we trust and we approve of. And so stay tuned for that, and have a great week, great weekend, and we'll see you next week.